It's been 2 years since I went on the launch of this car, the Honda Civic Type R FK8 generation, and like with a lot of launches, you have to make your mind up about the car in a very short period of time. I had a day and a half with the car, part of which was on track, part of it on the road, and you have all the facts in front of you before you arrive, but you have to really make your mind up about it in the short amount of time you have behind the wheel. Now, however, we have a Civic Type R as our long-termer, and I've spent way more time driving this thing than I ever would have had the chance to when it was brand new. So the question is, have any of my opinions about the car changed? In those 2 years, has anything really occurred to me that didn't occur in those first 2 days? Well, here are a couple of observations. In my video, I spoke at length about the suspension being softer in this FK8 generation of the Civic Type R than it had been in previous Civics. And certainly through all 3 driving modes, it is softer than it previously had been. Crucially though, having driven it now for a while, it is not soft, merely softer. So even back in comfort mode, all the way back here, you're still not isolated from every uneven surface, every bump. And if you go over traffic humps, well, you notice it. It does become slightly fatiguing over longer periods of time. And on my commute in and out of work in this car, any potholes like that, you notice. And it starts to feel a little bit draining. So yes, it is softer than it could have been, but it's not soft. The suspension is proper for what the car needs to do, but perhaps I would have appreciated it being a little bit softer in comfort mode. The gear knob. Now, during the launch, it was springtime, it was warm, and the gear knob felt cool and refreshing to the touch. However, we got this car as our long-termer during the winter, and when you first get in the car and you make that first gear shift, it is cold. This aluminium gear knob looks fantastic. It even sounds good when my wedding ring hits it. I find it a very satisfying click. But that first initial touch on a frosty January morning will almost tear the skin off your hands. It is something worth considering. It's a small detail, but you will notice it for 6 months of the year. Performance. Now, there is definitely nothing changed in my opinion about the performance of this car. It is still blisteringly quick and effortlessly so. You can get up to dangerous speeds in this car and never really feel like it's about to spit you off the road, which is fantastic. What I didn't necessarily think though was how much excitement I'd be getting at lower speeds on the day-to-day. I had been driving at the time a Ford Focus RS, which to this day I still think gives me more of a thrill at low speeds. However, I didn't quite give the CTR credit where credit was due, and I've really loved driving this thing at slow speeds. Even with the bumpy suspension, that has kind of heightened the sensation of speed, but just being able to pull away at the blink of an eye at a junction, and in R mode with the wheels spinning at the front, getting a little bit of slide, it has been a lot more fun. And getting to really learn the car and experience how to get the best out of it in those tight circumstances in town where you only have a small amount of time to put your foot down and get that little thrill, I've really enjoyed it. Interior. Now, at the launch, I noted that one of the weak points of the CTR was its plasticky interior. I was hoping that over time that might have, maybe not seemed as important. Unfortunately, it is the single greatest shortcoming of the CTR, and having driven it for a couple of months, that hasn't got any better. It still feels cheap, it still feels plasticky. Getting inside of it feels less of a special occasion and more of a, well, you suffer through the interior to get the fun of the drive. So unfortunately, that isn't something that's changed. On the exterior though, well, the exterior might not quite have the same shocking factor it did when we first saw it. That impactfulness of all those creases and lines and bends and sharp angles. We may have got used to it, but, well, when I park it up, I still want to turn back and look at it, and that's the mark of a great design car. It's still quite divisive whether you like it or not, but I still definitely do. Well, there you have have it, some observations about our long-termer Civic Type R 2 years after I first drove it on the launch. Some things have got better, some things annoy me a bit more, and other things, well, they've just settled in. Is there anything you would like to know about what this car is like to live with? Well, leave us a comment below and we'll try to get round to it as soon as possible. But for now, from the driving seat of our long-termer, the Honda Civic Type R, it's goodbye from me.